Okay, let me do Robbie's too. Brittany. Caleb. We gotta get him connected. Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Normally, in our opening number, we do a beautiful modern Hinema Tov, where we celebrate as brothers and sisters being together. But tonight, Cantor Whitner and I believe that we need to pray for peace, and something that the world needs, and I'll speak about this later in the service. So we have a very special Karl Bach, Oseh Shalom, to begin the mood, once again, to think of peace in the world.
Shalom, shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom. Ose shalom, shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom. Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel. Oseh shalom, shalom bimromav, Yaseh shalom, Oseh shalom, shalom bimromav, Yaseh shalom.
We turn to our prayer book, Mishkan Tefillah, which is in front of you or underneath you. We read together the top of page 100. 124. 124. We enter the sanctuary to welcome Shabbat. Within these walls, we sit surrounded by numberless generations. Our ancestors built the synagogue as a visible sign of God's presence in their midst. Throughout our long history and our endless wanderings, it has endured, a beacon of truth, love, and justice for all humanity. Its presence guided our ancestors to lives of righteousness, holding up to them a vision of their truest selves. Now we, in our turn, come into this sanctuary to affirm the sacredness of our lives. May we enter this place in peace. May holiness wrap around us as we cross its threshold. Awareness, doubt, the flaws within our human hearts, the harshness of the weak, let these drop away at the door. In the brightness of Shabbat, let peace settle upon us as we lift our hearts in prayers. It's our great honor to welcome the Levine family to the Bima as they light our Shabbat candles.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kirshanu b'mitzvotav metzivanu lehatlik ner Shel Shabbat.
For those who are able, we rise together for Kiddush 123.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen.
Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho b'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu zikaron lema'aseh v'reishit ki hu yom techila Lemikra Kodesh, Zecher Litziat Mitzrayim. Kivanu v'charta, v'otanu kidashta, mikol hamim, v'shabbat kodshecha, v'ahava uvratzon, hinchaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai Mekadesh HaShabbat.
Amen. L'chaim.
We continue together reading the top of page 127. There are days when we seek things for ourselves and measure failure by what we do not gain. On Shabbat, we seek not to acquire, but to share. There are days when we exploit nature as if it were a horn of plenty that can never be exhausted. On Shabbat, we stand in wonder before the mystery of creation. There are days when we act and care nothing for the rights of others. On Shabbat, we remember that justice is our duty and a better world our goal. So we embrace Shabbat, day of rest, day of wonder, and day of peace. We continue on 130 with Psalm 95.
Lechu neranen al Adonai Naria Litzur Yishem נא לאדוני, נריע לצור אישנו, נקדמה פניו בתודה, בזמירות נריע לו, כי אל גדול אדוני, ומלך גדול על כל אלוהים, אשר בידו מחקרי ארץ, ותועפות הרים לו. אשר לא הים והוא עשהו, ביבשת ידיו יצרו, כי הוא אלוהינו ואנחנו אמר איתו וצאן ידו.
We continue with Romamu, the bottom of page 135.
On page 138, we've reached the pinnacle of Kabbalat Shabbat, Lecha Dodi. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Shamor וזכור בדיבורך תשמיענו, אל המיוחד אדוני אחד ושמו אחד, לשם ולתפארת בלי תהילה. Lecha Dodi לקראת כלה, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi לקראת כלה, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. לקראת שבת לכו ונלכה, כי מקור הברכה מראש מקדם נסוכה, סוף מעשה במחשם בתחילה. Lecha Dodi לקראת כלה, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi לקראת כלה, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. התעוררי, התעוררי, כי באורך קומי אורי, 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 שיר דברי, כבוד אדוני עלייך נגלה. Lecha Dodi לקראת כלה, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi לקראת כלה, B'nei Shabbat nekabelam.
For those who are able, we rise together to greet Shabbat HaMelkah.
Boi v'shalom ateret malakam besimcha uv'tzola toch emunei amsegula. Boi chala lechandon dikrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela lechandon dikrat kala b'nei Shabbat nekabela.
The bottom of page 145. Teach me, O God, a blessing, a prayer on the mystery of a withered leaf, unripened fruit so fair, on the freedom to see, to sense, to breathe, to know, to hope, to despair. Teach my lips a blessing, a hymn of praise, as each morning and night you renew your days. Lest my day be today as the one before, lest routine set my ways. We continue with our Chetzi Kaddish right there, 144.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה בעלמא תברח חירותי וימליך מלכותי בחייכון וביומכון ובחי דכל בית ישראל בגלה בגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן יהי שמי רבה מברך לעלם ולעלמי עלמיה יתברך יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם וינשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשם בריחו לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה תמירן בעלמה ואמרו אמן.
We rise together, 146.
Yada da da da, 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 yada da da da. Am I awake? Am I prepared? Are you listening? Can you hear my voice? Can you understand? Am I awake? Am I prepared? Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach.
We continue the top of page 148.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bidvaro ma'ariv aravim, b'chochma poteach she'arim, v'tvuna mishaneh itim, ומחליף את הזמנים, ומסדר את הכוכבים, במשמרותיהם ברקיע כרצונו. בורא יום ולילה, גולל אור מפני חושך, וחושך מפני אור. ומעביר יום ומביא לילה, ומבדיל בין יום ובין לילה, אדוני צבאות שמו. אל חי וקיים, תמיד ימלוך עלינו לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני המעריב ערבים.
Amen. Yash koach.
On the next page.
Ahavat olam Beit Yisrael, Amcha ahavtam, Torah u'mitzvot, chukim u'mishpatim, otanu limadeta. Al kein Adonai Eloheinu, בשוכבנו ובקומנו, נשיח בחוקיך, ונשמח בדברי תורתך, ובמצוותיך לעולם ועד, כי הם חיינו באורך ימינו, ובהם נחגה יומם ולילה. ואהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים, ברוך אתה אדוני, אוהב עמו ישראל. שמע ישראל, אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני אחד. ברוך שם כבוד, מלכותו לעולם ועד.
ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודך. והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם בשבתך, בביתך, ובלתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
Adonai Elohechem emet. Yasher koach.
We read together at the top of page 157. Standing on the parted shores of history, we still believe what we were taught before ever we stood at Sinai's foot, that wherever we go, it is eternally Egypt, that there is a better place, a promised land. The winding way to that promise passes through the wilderness. There's no way to get from here to there except by joining hands, marching together. Our Michamocha 158.
מיכה כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש, מי כמוך באלים אדוני, מי כמוך נדר בקודש. נורא תהילות עושה פלא, נורא תהילות עושה פלא, אדוני מלוך לעולם ועד. מלכותך ראו בניך בוקע ים לפני משה ומרים, זה אלי אנו ואמרו, זה אלי אנו ואמרו, אדוני מלוך לעולם ועד. יאי די 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 די, יאי די 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 די, יאי די 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 די, יאי די 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 די.
We continue together at the top of page 161. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Adonai, help us to walk with good companions, to live with hope in our hearts and eternity in our thoughts, that we may lie down in peace and rise up, waiting to do your will. Or Hashkivenu 160.
השכיבנו אדוני, אלוהינו לשלום, והעמידנו שומרנו לחיים. Spread the shelter of your peace over us. Guide us in wisdom, compassion, and trust. Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu leshalom, ve'hamidenu shomreinu l'chaim. Save us for the sake of your name. Shield us from hatred, sorrow, and pain. Hashkivenu Adonai, Eloheinu leshalom, ve'hamidenu shomreinu l'chaim, l'chaim, l'chaim.
The top of page 163. We are a people in whom the past endures, in whom the present is inconceivable, without moments gone by. The Exodus lasted a moment enduring forever. What happened once upon a time happens all the time. Vishamru 162.
ובני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם.
Middle of page 165. Prayer invites God's presence to suffuse our spirits, God's will to prevail in our lives. Prayer may not bring water to parched fields, nor mend a broken bridge, nor rebuild a ruined city. But prayer can water an arid soul, mend a broken heart, rebuild a weakened will. For those who are able, we rise together for our tefillah 166.
ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו ואמותינו, אלוהי אברהם, אלוהי יצחק ואלוהי יעקב, אלוהי שרה, אלוהי רבקה, אלוהי רחל ואלוהי לאה, האל הגדול הגיבור והנורא, אל עליון, גומל חסדים טובים וקונה הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה, מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן. ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם בעזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיי מתים אתה רב להושיע. משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי מתים ברחמים רבים, צומח נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות ומי דומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה להחיות מתים. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי המתים. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
We turn to the top of page 179. We read together. Grant us peace, your most precious gift, O eternal source of peace, and give us the will to proclaim its message to all the peoples of the earth. Bless our country as a safeguard of peace, its advocate among the nations. Make contentment reign within our borders, health and happiness within our homes. Strengthen the bonds of friendship and fellowship among all the inhabitants of every land. Plant virtue in every soul, and may the love of your name hallow every home and every heart. Praise you, Eternal One, who blesses our people with peace.
Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim בכל השלום נתום עיניך לברך את עמך ישראל בכל עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. ברוך אתה אדוני המברך את עמו ישראל בשלום.
We take a few moments for silent meditation.
יהיו לרצון אמרי פי יהיו לרצון אמרי פי מהגיון ליבי לפניך אדוני צורי וגואלי. Oh, may the words of my mouth, the meditation of my heart be acceptable before you. O God, my rock and my redeemer. Oseh shalom b'meromav, Uyaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, me'imeru, me'imeru, amen.
At this moment, in our service, we think of those in our community who are in need of healing of body and spirit. We especially think of Linda Applebaum, Margaret Bell, Harold Seitlin, Deborah Chargois, Greg Cohen, Karen Edwards, Bruce Fleissig, Edward Goldberg, Jeffrey Goldman, Sandra Goldman, Miriam Goldstein, Josie Hatfield, Abraham Hausman Weiss, Evelyn Held, Donald Himmel, Ralph Holtzman, Joan Jacobson, Corey Kessler, Bart Kolber, Jerry Lapidus, Marlene Meyerson, Zane Monlick, Jeffrey Muss, Susan Schumann, Leslie Simon, Chrissy St. Charles, Brenda Weinstein, and Carol Wright. For those with us this evening, if you are thinking of a loved one, we invite you to stand and share that name out loud with us. For those names mentioned out loud and for those names that are still in our hearts, we turn to the middle of page 371 for our Misha Berach.
Misha Berach Avotenu Mekor HaBracha Leimotenu. May the source of strength who bless the ones before us help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Mi sheberach imo מקור הברכה לאבותינו. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Gomo, Belarus has been in the news lately. This is where they've had to have some peace talks between the Russians and the Ukrainians. But Gomel in Belarus is also a special place for me. I believe that I've told this community in 2009, I led Passover Seders for Jewish communities in Belarus, and this was a life-changing experience. We were in Minsk, we were in Vitebsk, and Vitebsk is the home of the famous artist Marc Chagall. We were in Mogilev and Babruysk. Most Jewish Belarusians, they endeavor to live some type of a vibrant Jewish life. For the most part, this Jewish life, it's quiet. There are certain synagogues and Jewish nonprofits that are underground, underneath apartments in bomb shelters. Because in Belarus and also in Ukraine, in these areas, there's a fear of deep-seated anti-Semitism that still remains on the surface. But when I was in Belarus, we got to engage with their Netzer, and this is the reformed equivalent to NIFTY, North Federation Teen Youth. This is their youth group. And these teens were absolutely incredible. Regardless of their circumstance, they shared a love of Torah and for Israel, a love of God, and we even visited a Jewish day school. I think for many Americans, for many American Jews, this part of the world is important for our history. And I spoke about this last week's baby naming for Maisie and Teddy. For those who heard on television, for those who are here, all three of my kids share the Davis name. I want them to live the legacy of Anna and Dave Davis. Anna Davis came from a shtetl, which would be Belarus, David Hordork, which is east of Pinsk, and they're part of a living heritage society. Sometime in 1941, the Nazis forced the Jewish residents of David Hordork to dig a hole, and we all know what happened next. So for Jews who live in the former Soviet Union, Ukraine, even with its painful history for the Jews, which I'll talk about momentarily, is still incredibly important to us. I'm sure you've heard this on the news. It's the only country in the world outside of Israel that has a Jewish head of state, the incredible, charismatic, and brave Vladimir Zelensky. And also, they're not talking about this as much, their prime minister, Vladimir Groys, is also Jewish. It has the 5th largest Jewish community with 200,000 Jews, with an incredibly vibrant Chabad there. It's in this land, Ukraine, where Hasidim was born, with its founder, the great Baal Shem Tov, the master of the good name. He created numerous yeshivot in the area, and soon by the 19th and early 20th century, this is the land that brought us one of my heroes, Zeb Jabotinsky and Shalom Aleichem, two incredible Zionists. It's also in this land where the Bilu, Beit Yaakov L'chuneh Chalcha, O house of Jacob, let us build up to restore a Jewish land in Eretz Yisrael. So Ukraine is the heart of Jewish intellectia and vibrant spirituality. But on the other hand, it's been a hard history for us. The Chelminsky pogroms by the Cossacks, the persecution coming from Alexander III, the Russian Tsar. Baba Yar has been in the news, and this is where the Nazis murdered 34,000 Jews. The Russians were shelling it. Many Ukrainians during World War II were part of the final solution against their Jewish community. but it's made significant progresses. Even with its democratic process, its reforms, and even with its high anti-Semitic groups, it's trying its best to westernize. I've lost track of time, but the past 8 or 9 days have been absolutely horrifying for the world. For the most part, we want to think of Europe as safe. It's a place where we travel to, where we experience different cultures by traveling to different borders and hearing different languages. There's been a conflict in Crimea since 2014 with nearly 25,000 people who have been killed. Some of us remember what happened in the Balkans in the late 1990s, but this is different. We have the Russians engaging in indiscriminate attacks, killing civilians, and it is frightening for all of us. So the question what's been on all of our minds is, what is our response? And standing in front of you and for those watching and standing on this historic bima, I don't have the authority, no knowledge to speak of a military response. There's no way I'm going to talk about no-fly zones, or if America should cancel the importing of Russian oil, or the current arms shipments coming from other European countries. We can say that Ukraine is dealing with a thug regime who raises nuclear levels, which scares us. There was a theory born during the Cold War, MAD, mutually assured destruction. So if the Americans were to engage in a no-fly zone, it would be the end of the world because of such weapons. We're also concerned that China may see this as an opportunity to invade Taiwan. We haven't been this anxious at the world stage in a really long time. So again, it's okay to be frightened. It's okay to be inspired by an incredible president. The bravery of Ukrainian soldiers, celebrities, entertainers, and of athletes and citizens going back to Ukraine and defending their freedom. And as a Jew, I'm proud of this president. And we have seen the world has found a way to be united. So the question remains, what is the Jewish response as we live here in the safety of America? I think for one, we continue to support the Federation's special campaign for Ukraine. In addition to so many nonprofits who are helping dealing with a massive humanitarian crisis, a refugee crisis that will be in the millions, and we support European countries that will take so many Ukrainians in. I think we have to celebrate the spirit of Ukraine too as well. Captured Russian soldiers are getting meals, they're calling their mothers, and they're not giving up on their people. So tonight, I think our response needs to be with our souls, and it needs to be with our brains. According to military experts, in a couple weeks, the Russians will soon occupy the country based on their military strategy. But the same military experts say that this will turn into an endless guerrilla war with more sanctions and more death to come. We'll see this endlessly on television, and again, we'll be frightened with Russia's control of more nuclear reactors. This is what I think is a good first step for our community. When I was at the gym, ESPN was on to my right, and I'm starting to see that Russian athletes are being banned for participating, even here in Birmingham at the World Games. There are so many Russian citizens, millions who want freedom, millions who have protested the government, often jailed and physically assaulted. We have to remember they are not fault. I just read that universities are trying to cancel Russian literature and Russian music out of protest of this. As a Jewish people, we can't cancel Russians. There are incredible amounts of good Russians who want Putin gone. I don't have the power, but for those who are watching maybe, I urge professional sporting leagues to reconsider banning them because it's becoming a paradox. Qatar, the country that is housing the World Cup in soccer, the biggest sporting event in the world, has legalized slavery with forced labor to build their stadiums. It also houses Hamas, a terrorist group. So it's a bit of a hypocritical act to ban the Russian soccer team from participating. Stores are banning Russian vodka, and therefore I'm deeply worried of an anti-Slavic response. Communities in New York, Los Angeles, and Michigan that have many Russian speakers. And at the end, this type of boycotting or canceling doesn't help the people of Ukraine. It's not about us feeling good. It's about how our actions can be a light, because there are so many challenges upon the horizon. I also ask this congregation to get more knowledgeable about Ukraine and its Jewish history, and the Jewish history in Russia and Israel. I am not surprised, but we're facing a bevy of journalists and other nonprofit groups who are comparing the Russian tactics the same to the Israelis who attack Hamas. And we have to call this out. And finally, to add to our fear, the Iranian deal is not making the front pages, but our government is on the verge of re-entering this agreement. On the record, I believe this deal is horrible for the world, Israel, America, and the Jewish people. Iran is the biggest state sponsor of terrorism. The Zionist Organization of America, AIPAC, many Jewish nonprofits will be mobilized. But right now, we have Russia, we have Iran, we have China and North Korea. It's not a good time if we think about it. We've got so much on my plate. So here is my plea for this Shabbat. There's been an incredible amount of world unity for Ukraine. And maybe we can learn from this. Maybe we here in Birmingham can find a way to be more unified. I know that we are set in our beliefs, we are set in our worldview, but maybe when there's so much darkness and fear, this is our opportunity to strive to be our best selves, to embody Torah, to live with kindness, to live with forgiveness, perhaps to be less judgmental and smile to strangers. Tonight, in the strange Jewish calendar, we welcome Adar 2. And soon we will celebrate Purim, which is found in the book of Esther, and it's the only book that doesn't mention the name of God in our sacred Jewish literature. Our rabbis have different theories, but one thing remains. It's the power of the Jewish spirit that makes a difference. It's through humility, it's with companionship, it's strive to work in our imperfections. So therefore, I want to leave you with two quotes from the Baal Shem Tov, one of the greatest rabbis who came out of Ukraine to give us some type of perspective to make a difference in our lives that perhaps can continue through more mitzvot. Your fellow man is your mirror. If your own face is clean, the image you perceive will also be flawless. But should you look upon your fellow man and see a blemish, it is your own imperfection that you are encountering. You're being shown what is that you must correct within yourself. And just as we love ourselves despite the shortcomings we have, so should we love others despite the shortcomings they have. I pray for immediate peace in Ukraine. I pray for this endless war to end caused by the Russians. I know many of us are scared and glued to the television, but the more we work on ourselves, perhaps this can be the light that we need. Shabbat Shalom. We turn to page 586. We rise together for Aleinu.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצא בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
The top of page 597. Remember our people who suffered and died so that we could be free and secure. May their memory be more than a distant shadow, and please join me. For their dreams left unfulfilled and lives taken too soon, we remember. Remember our brothers and sisters whose sacrifice kept the dream of democracy and justice alive. May their courage be our inspiration and strength. For life cut short and vision unrealized, we remember. Remember the fallen of our armed services, the victims of terror and tragedy. May the darkness of their loss not obscure the light of peace. They were in love with our land and in love with life. For the agony, the tears, the mothers and the fathers, for the children who were and for the children yet to be, we remember. On this Shabbat, we recall the yortzeits of Ralph Ayland, Herbert J. Baum, Harry Burno, Abraham Bressler, Rose Waxman Bressler, Aubrey Elton Buchalter, Herbert Kane, Isaac E. Capilouto, Judge Marvin Cherner, Sylvia Cooley, Bessie G. Cooley, Neelia Einstein, Gladys Epstein, Ben F. Ezekiel, Alex Friedman, Mort Gilbert, May Goldberg, Howard Goldstein, Nathan Goldstein, Michael Hirsch, Jacqueline Jaspin, Jack Caden, Nathan Kraselsky, Lena Krensman, Isaac Ike Cronenberg, David Joel Landau, Anna Levine, Jacob M. Levine Sr., Lee Unger Lichter, Abe London, Minnie Wheel Loveman, Joseph H. Loveman, Ella L. Mack, Beatrice L. Mazer, Eugenia Makeson, David Mitnick, Lucille Oster, Abraham I. Purley, Philip Pincus, Saul Rittenbaum, Joseph D. Rosenberger Sr., Pearl Rothman, Rick Ruby, Ben Sag, Joseph Sachs, Sidney Sigmund, Louis Silberman, David Sperling, Harvey D. Spieholtz, Max Steinmetz, Milton Turner, Edward Wald, Rosalind Lurie Wheel, my apologies, Oscar Weinstein and Saul Zalman, and a heartfelt condolences in the recent passings of Terry Aronoff, mother of Hillary, grandmother of Harris, Ainsley, and Schuyler, Jackie Blue, aunt of Judith Denson, Larry Stephen Cohn, uncle of Danny Cohn and great-uncle of Nora Miller Cohn, Sissy Held, wife of Leonard, mother of Jerry and Karen Allen, grandmother of Brian Held, Elisa Nelson and Lane Held, great-grandmother of Reed Nelson, Morgan Nelson, Alexa Nelson, and Jace Held, and Louis Buddy Schulhafer, husband of Lucy and father of Lindy Edwards. May all their memories forever be a blessing. We rise together for Mordechai Kaddish 598. Yikadal, Yikadash, Shemei Rabbah, Bioma divrachu teva amlich malchute. Bechayachon of Yom Echon, uvchayet b'kol Beit Yisrael. Bagala uzman kariv yimru.
Amen.
Yehei Shmei Rabbah Mevarach Le'olam Olamei Maya. Yiparach v'yishtabach v'yitba'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal Shmei Dekutsha.
Brichu.
Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Tushbechata v'nechemata. Damin ram b'yoma v'yimru. Amen. Yehei Shlama Rabba min Shemaya. V'chayim aleinu v'yokol Yisrael v'yimru. Amen. O say shalom b'romav, hu yaseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'yimru, amen.
Amen.
O say shalom b'romav, hu yaseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael.
We conclude with Ein Kelohenu 626.
Ein Kelohenu, ein Kadonenu, ein Kemalkeinu, ein Kemoshienu, mich Eloheinu, mich Adonenu, mich Emalkeinu, mich Moshienu, Nodel Eloheinu, Nodel Adonenu, Nodel Malkeinu, Nodel Moshienu, Baruch Eloheinu, Baruch Adonenu, Baruch Malkeinu, Baruch Moshienu, Atahu Eloheinu, Atahu Adonenu, Atahu Malkeinu, Atahu Moshienu.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Amen.
Amen. B'tei avon and Shabbat Shalom.
It's all yours, the whole hall is all yours. It's all yours, take it, take the money, take the whole thing, it's all yours. The whole thing.